What's up, everybody? My name is Raj Cheto. Welcome to another Crimson Artist YouTube video, and welcome to the 9th part in my ongoing series of Marvel Cinematic Universe movie reviews, starting off with the first Iron Man, leading all the way to Avengers Infinity War. And we have 10 more movies after this, guys. This is amazing. This is the 9th film. Oh boy. Now, in case you don't remember, last week when I gave out my review for Thor: The Dark World, I wasn't entirely enthusiastic. I still think Thor: The Dark World is the worst in the MCU by far. It is boring. It's completely contrived. Too much. It's the most inconsistent film because it presents itself as a dark film, hence the title, but then we have these humorous moments, which I can respect, but what do you want this? What do they want this movie to be? Do they want this to be a humorous film? Do they want this to be a pretty serious film? What is it? It's pretty inconsistent. This is something I'm glad Ragnarok eventually figured out much later, but I'm not talking about Thor right now. Because this week I am incredibly excited to talk to you guys about probably the Iron Man of Phase 2. What do I mean by that? In Phase 1, the only solo film to actually change things around and manage to surprise everybody and still be a very entertaining, fun blockbuster, that was the first Iron Man, and that was part of Phase 1. Phase 2, Captain America the Winter Soldier is the best film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2 lineup. It is easily the best. I personally think it is the best MCU movie, better than Iron Man, better than the Avengers, because they pull a lot of stakes here that you will never have found in the previous films, let alone future films, except for one. I will talk about that when I get the chance to talk about that, okay? So, Captain America the Winter Soldier is based off of the comic series of the same name written by Ed Brubaker. Now, as a kid, I did not have a whole lot of comics to read. The only few comics I did check out was The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, plenty of others, but like I said, I have never read a full list growing up. And one of them that I did manage to read, and I'm glad I managed to check out, was the Winter Soldier series, as well as the Death of Captain America. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Winter Soldier. And I loved the dynamic between Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, and that, spoiler alert, which is not really a spoiler if you really think about it, because it's been quite a bit of time since Winter Soldier essentially came out. Winter Soldier is Bucky Barnes, Captain America's old sidekick. Okay? Got it? Good. And I was incredibly concerned how they're going to adapt this storyline, considering there's a lot of differences from movies to comics these days, and the MCU is no exception to that matter. Many films in this franchise, especially Iron Man 3, remember the whole Mandarin thing? Yeah. I was incredibly concerned how they were going to address the Winter Soldier here. And what we got, it's different from the comics, that's for sure, but it also embraces and respects it as well. They take cues and references from the comics, but they don't necessarily copy it off entirely. Otherwise, the plot becomes essentially predictable. And there are a handful of plot twists that I was not even expecting. It changed the game for Marvel. I don't know whether if I should give out the twist now, or you should just see it for yourself, but then again, this movie came out 4 years ago, so I think it's safe. For many years, everybody has been pretty suspicious over S.H.I.E.L.D.'s activities, from Captain America himself to Tony Stark. Now we know why, because it turns out, after all this time, Hydra was hiding inside of S.H.I.E.L.D's own network. It's kind of complicated. You do have to see the film to understand what I'm talking about. But I was not expecting this. This was a pretty cool twist. And like I said, it changed the game for Marvel forever. And it makes the universe, especially on Earth, a lot more vulnerable than it originally seemed. Because S.H.I.E.L.D. was meant to protect from supernatural, unnatural occurrences like an alien invasion in a big city, you know. That's what S.H.I.E.L.D. is meant to do, to monitor all this shit. And then it turns out that the very thing that Captain America fought to destroy in World War II has always been around. It's been lurking within the shadows, and it essentially took over S.H.I.E.L.D. And that is so compelling. And it makes Steve Rogers' arc as a character in this film even more compelling, because Peggy Carter, the love interest of the first film, was one of the founding fathers of S.H.I.E.L.D. And the fact that it's been turned against what it originally was, essentially against her, makes his arc a little more compelling. Yeah, so let's talk about Captain America himself, okay? Before this movie, I thought he was an okay character. He was not that... He wasn't too exciting as a character. Sure, he was kick-ass in the first Avenger and did some cool work in the Avengers, but this film, The Winter Soldier, cemented him as a fucking badass, okay? Chris Evans knocked it out of the park as Steve Rogers. I love what they've done with the character, from the stunt work to the essence of Captain America. And this movie comes out a year after Man of Steel, and Man of Steel attempted to make a pretty lighthearted superhero realistic, put him in a very dark place. Winter Soldier did it way better, because remember, Captain America and Superman, they essentially are symbols of hope, that they are very patriotic, they fight for truth, justice, in the American way. I mean, they literally look like the American flag, both of them, minus Superman with the gold in his chest. But with Captain America, with what they did with Winter Soldier, they made the character, who's known to being pretty much a Boy Scout in a way, but they made him realistic, properly realistic, you know? He's still a soldier out of his own time. He is learning the ways of now, the modern era, but he doesn't overdo it. That is something I was very glad they handled. At the very start, we see him write down these notes as to what he should check out, what's the internet and all that. Like, everything is pretty much all taken care of. What is important is, like, what really makes him fascinating is not the culture around him, but the moral aspects of his character truly shines here. And I have to give the writers a whole lot of credit on it. You don't normally see that with a character like Captain America, but I now do. He doesn't, like, as I said from the first Avenger, that Captain America's only goal was not to fight just to, you know, like he hates bullies. He doesn't want to see anything bad happen in the world. He just wants to do good. But of course, he starts to realize that there are specific consequences in which you have to take into account. And he develops very well within his own trilogy of films. And what happens in Civil War, which I won't discuss now, of course, makes this film much, much better if you really get down to it. It's another example of, like, future films makes the previous films a lot stronger and a lot more relevant than one might think. Remember what I said about Iron Man 2, where Peter Parker was shown as a young little boy in Iron Man 2 to eventually be seen as Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming and Captain America Civil War. Same logic applies to Captain America in his own films, where the consequences that take place in The Winter Soldier carry over to Civil War, making the two more connected than ever. And it's absolutely gratifying. Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier, aka Bucky, like, I thought in the first film, at least, I thought he was okay. He wasn't that compelling, but this one, they managed to turn him into a pretty badass character already. I was enthralled by their performances. I couldn't wait to see more, especially in Civil War, and now with Infinity War coming out, I can't wait to see what they do with the Winter Soldier. I hope he is referenced in Black Panther. By the way, this review is being recorded on the day Black Panther comes out, and at this point, I have not seen the movie. If you haven't, go check that out. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Please go. My review for Black Panther, as I said before, won't be released until a week before Infinity War, because I want to go along with this series of reviews I'm doing. If I release my review on the week the movie essentially comes out, for in this case, it's going to break my tradition. It's going to break my my path of these of this playlist. So I don't want to break it. But back to Winter Soldier. I think they handled the villains very, very well here. Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce, very, very threatening. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this guy. And I feel very disturbed by him, and I'm very grateful for that. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, she came a long way on her own and as just the side character, which sucks that we haven't had a Black Widow solo film yet, though I'm hearing reports that we might get a solo film from her pretty soon, but I don't know how I feel about that, because films like Lucy and the Ghost in the Shell movie, she's pretty badass, I'll give her that, but I just want there to be some good writing within her. You know, she can actually be in a good solo movie with basically her being the female, female Bruce Willis or Arnold Schwarzenegger, someone who's just badass, who can hold on her own without, but I don't know what they'll do with Black Widow, but they handle Black Widow and Winter Soldier so well that she becomes more relatable and more human than previous interpretations, because we see her as this super badass spy chick, but in here she's like, I only act like I knew everything, Rogers, and all that. I think that's fucking cool. She has the best lines. Anthony Mackie as the Falcon was also a cool addition. He was basically us, the everyman who just happens to be a part of this grand adventure along with Captain America, and that was cool. Winter Soldier does have his flaws. I won't deny that. There are moments I thought that they could have fixed up here and there, especially regarding the twist. I wish that they could have handled that a little bit better. But overall, this is the best film so far in the MCU overall. It has a lot of stakes. It's definitely the darkest, but that doesn't mean it's Man of Steel dark. It takes itself seriously to the point where you are still being entertained. You're still enjoying the story, the characters, the performances. I love how this is shot. Actually, there is CGI, but the scenes where it doesn't require CGI, like the elevator fight, or just in general hand-to-hand brawl, like they handle the action in this so well that it makes me even more excited for Infinity War, because the Russo brothers have mastered action here. It looks incredible, and I can't wait for more from these guys. I hope they stick around more so after Infinity War. I do think that they got the I do think they got it right. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. I had to give this an A plus. This is a fantastic film. I can't. There are, like I said, there are some flaws, but the good outweigh the bad in this case, and so I am definitely giving this an A plus. Go check this out. Even if you're an MCU fan, if you're not an MCU fan, if you're just looking for a fantastic time, The Winter Soldier is the right movie for you. No doubt about that. Thank you so much for watching, and next week I will get down to talking about the second best film in the Phase 2 lineup, and the first film to be quite out of the box. Yeah, I'll see you next week. Take care.